Welcome to the Last in Line podcast, where we discuss faith, hope, and truth in the lives of amazing servant leaders. You are in the right place if you crave purpose and if you hunger for a life of significance. This podcast applies biblical truth to our daily lives, and we pray that you walk away encouraged and inspired. This is the Last in Line podcast.
Gentlemen, one of my favorite human beings on the planet is with us today, and I'm honored to say this is his third appearance on the show. Those of you might know who he is. I'm certain most of you do. Matt Beaudreau is who I'm speaking of. He and Tim Kennedy are co-founders of the Apogee Strong program, which is both an online and a physical education program that really focuses on meta skills for young people who are men and girls. They have introduced a female program as well, but for the young men specifically, they teach them skills for life: soft skills, hard skills, resilience, critical thinking. They do what is called steel manning exercise, where they basically, well, I'll let him tell you, but he was a professor at Stanford. He was a former public school teacher. He's a very renowned keynote speaker. He's got over 1,000 keynote speeches under his belt. He's traveling pretty much half the year, it seems like, doing those sort of appearances and speaking engagements. They've got 50 new campuses opening up this year across the country. They do virtual classrooms, virtual what I call masterminds, but that's just for lack of a better term. They wouldn't call it that, but teaching, mentoring programs worldwide where kids join in from all over and hear a successful entrepreneur, a successful leader, just talk about their success and what's made them and what will help these young people. So Apogee Strong is really it can be a supplemental educational program. It can be the mainstay as they are creating a university accredited where they can get a degree. And so they're really growing. The world is taking them seriously because public education and governmental institutional education and schooling, conveyor belt schooling, is really starting to be called out. And Matt and his team are calling young people up into a different way of thinking, into a different education system. So I loved it. We talk a lot about that. We've never done this, but I've never had Matt and I have a conversation as deep as we got about spirituality and faith and belief systems and God and just digging into some of the Hebrew terminology. But I really appreciated his perspective. I really appreciated his thoughts on leadership, marriage, parenting. Like, we cover the whole gamut. This is one of my more favorite conversations I've had in a long time. So with that, help me welcome the one and only Matt Beaudreau to Last in Line podcast. Matt Beaudreau, you are officially back for a third time on Last in Line podcast. How does it feel?
Never a hard time speaking to you, my friend.
Well, hey, I wish we could connect, in person sometime. Maybe we will when you get out to Texas every now and again. And our corporate office is in North Carolina. I don't know how we haven't crossed paths, because I guess I'm just not out there much for our corporate office, thank God. But
what part of Carolina?
RTP, Research Triangle, so Raleigh.
Yeah.
So not really near you, but
4-ish hours. Yeah.
Yeah. You're in the good side of the state, right? You're in the more wooded side.
I like to get there. Yeah.
Well, dude, forces of evil cannot intervene and prevent us from having this conversation, although they tried this morning. So
man.
We circled back. You had some power outages. I had the same issue a couple days ago. So man, I tell you what, good over evil today, people.
All day, man. So no, I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been wild with that hurricane. We left California and we were excited to leave the earthquakes, and we had no idea we were walking into hurricane territory out here in Western Carolina.
You might just be. I didn't realize that you guys were really in the path of one of those either, for it to be that far inland, right?
Yeah, man, it shouldn't have been. I mean, it was like it's like if a hurricane hit San Diego, but kind of glossed over it and then went all the way into like Vegas and flattened Vegas. Like we're not anywhere near a coast,
Yeah.
but it's done some
Hmm.
damage, obviously. So, but
Yeah.
hey, that's all right. We're far better off than others, so I've got no complaints.
Yeah. Well, good. I appreciate you coming back on. We're going to talk a little bit of your wheelhouse, which I'm sure you do 2 or 3 of these a week at least. And so you might be at nauseum with some of it, but at the same time, I think you're so passionate about it and it's sort of become your life's work that, man, you can't talk enough about it. And if one new person hears about Apogee and then the culture and the concept, man, that's a win. So what's the latest with Apogee? For those that don't know, go listen to, the first 2 podcasts with Matt. But we've talked about education and secondary education. You've been at higher levels education. You've been all of the above. What's life like at Apogee right now?
Yeah, I appreciate that question, man. Yeah, and this is all my favorite stuff to talk about. So everything we're doing now is really just to bolster what is there. So, over this last year, we had over 100 affiliates sign on to launch campuses in their local communities. And so some have launched, some are still in the preparation, stage. And some of these campuses that launched, man, just this past fall, they're already at 70, 80, 90 kids. And
Hmm.
it's awesome, man. So we get to support serving them, and we've got more and more. We got a Q&A this coming Friday where we got a few hundred people coming in to learn, like, what could that look like if I want to launch an education business in my in my
Hmm.
hometown. And so we've just added more levels of support there. We've added more coaches internally. We've added live workshops to come in and see, is this for me? We've added a launch team that will go fly out to you and host your open houses. Just all the different ways to support, and in the process of doing that, we support the families as well. That's a huge part for us. So we've got more coaches around the men's side, the women's side. All of our coaches have gone through our programs. So these are just people, just men like you and
Hmm.
I that have gone through this and, seen the impact for their own families. And so now they're helping support the men and women too, man. So it's just extra layers of support, and we're continuing to grow.
That's good, man, because I think sometimes it gets lost in the shuffle, this bridge between the home and the educational
Sure.
institution. And I think we just turn them over as parents and then hope they come back a finished product. And they oftentimes come back maybe worse than they started. I don't know. But they're for sure not a completed entity.
Well, I mean, isn't that the game, right? The realization that none of us are completed entities. Like we're
Hmm.
not done until we're 6 feet under.
Hmm.
Until God says, "Come on back."
Hmm.
We're supposed to grow, and so that is the thing. I've got nothing but admiration for good humans that are working in any traditional education environment. As much as I don't love that system, I still have
Hmm.
respect for the people. But they know, and I know when I was in it, that the concept of we're partnering with families really means you can come to the PTA meetings if you'd like, but when we send work home, when we send homework back, you just make sure you're an extension of us at home.
Hmm.
And I just can't see it that way, man. The parents are always and forever the primary educators, so why don't we help them do that better? And then any campus should be an extension of them.
100%, 100%. And you guys are multiplying, so you must be doing something right. And, I have a son who's he's a teacher in the ninth grade high school
Yeah,
sector, and he's a
yeah,
baseball coach. And I really think the latter is his love and why he's doing it. And
sure.
I think it's just, there's a little bit of a bad taste out there with some of the good educators, obviously, and they feel like they're probably have little control and their hands are a little bit tied. Let me ask you a real quick question, fact or fiction on this, kind of truth or myth, true or false. The new federal administration
Mm,
can come in and have an immediate impact in some of the state and local educational systems because let's just say if they get it, they
yeah.
could have an impact, or is that toothpaste already out of the tube, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean it's so I look at the entire thing there as kind of this one big game where not a whole lot's going to change no matter how much it seems like it changes. So that's personal opinion. Others will take it a different way, but what essentially is being proposed is, putting certain people are up in arms saying, okay, well, if we get rid of the Department of Education, all of
Mm-hmm.
this funding for kids with special needs, all these IEPs are going to be affected, all this. And
Mm-hmm.
what's being proposed is essentially sending things back to the states. It's taking the same budgetary structure and just giving it to other entities to control. So it's really just kind of it's more of the cup game, where you stick something under the cup, and to me it's just more of shifting around things and passing it over to somebody else to control. There's good and bad that goes along with that, and all of it is theory until anything happens, right? I mean, that's really what it is. Our part in that, because I personally, and where anybody aligns or is not aligned on this is fine by me. I'm personally not a big politics guy. I'm not a big fan of politics in general.
Sure.
I don't necessarily lean. People will assume based on certain things that I'm a Democrat. They'll assume based on some things that I'm Republican. They'll assume based on some things that I'm Libertarian. And I'm like, hey, I don't even vote, right? I'm just not. Tulsi is my only politician friend because we talk family and education. So, but my business partner is far more connected in that world. So part of what we are doing as an organization is working to try to help write proposed legislature that changes what education is defined as in this country.
Mm-hmm.
So that if somebody wants to home educate, they have some more resources. If somebody wants to go to a private school or a homeschool co-op, or if mom and dad want to go to some professional development like we offer, the state can look at that and go, okay, well, that's continued education and we can help you with that. That's what we're working on. But I don't ever look at the government as like, hey, hopefully you're going to help us out. I don't ever look for it.
For sure. I think more and more, folks are dependent less and less on that.
Yes, sir.
And, along those lines, when you talk about private schooling and public schooling and have opinions on either, if you will, but we just passed a deal, bond, maybe a few, or I guess in the fall, where the vouchers were approved. I'm sure you've heard of the vouchers. And so it gives parents kind of a reprieve a little bit on choosing if they want to choose private schooling, and maybe they can afford. Again, it's still schooling, right? It's still
schooling,
that
and you
conveyor belt situation.
That's it. And you take a look and see what the strings are with any sort of voucher programs, and every state can be a little different, but are there strings? Are there still things you're having to do? The big thing for me, the big push for me is telling parents, look, school choice, no school choice. The reality is you always have a choice. You've always had one. Yes, some choices are harder than others, but you've always had a choice. You don't have to do X, Y, and Z. You can do what you want to do, and you don't actually have to look for everybody's permission on it. That's the hardest thing to get people to wrap their mind around, is that you don't have to ask anybody and everybody for permission for everything.
Yeah.
So when I show them, just this last week alone, showing them one of our 16-year-olds with a $60,000 job offer, one of our 18-year-olds graduating from college at 18, two of our 21-year-olds in their PhD program with, their double majors. My own 14-year-old with, she's got more than a 40-hour-a-week job right now, where everybody else in the 100+ person staff is 18 or over. These aren't outliers in a sense of like, well, yeah, but you're just picking I could tell you these stories all day. What it comes down to is parents realizing, wait, I don't have to do the thing that everybody says I have to do, and I'm willing to make the sacrifices and figure out how to build our life around this. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, even if I give you the fact that they are outliers, guess what? They don't have to be. They don't have to be outliers. They don't have to be the minority, right?
That's right. That's exactly right. They're only outliers because more people haven't gotten on board with the fact that we can do this if we wanted to do it. Because I can tell you those kinds of stories every week. Every week I can point those out.
I'm sure you can. And I've interviewed some of your heroes and some of your team members. I guess is what we're calling, but some of the people involved in Apogee, and man, those kids, it doesn't surprise me that there's kids in their young 20s getting a PhD. That's crazy. That's incredible. But I will say, last time I checked, we are still in a capitalism framework. Okay.
Yes,
right. And so there's really no strings, no handcuffs, unless you allow them to be. So, you're an entrepreneur and you've got several businesses. I think last time we even talked maybe about some of the trusts and the foundations and how we don't own anything, right? I talked to Sean Briscoe, and thank you for introducing me to him. And what a outside the box thinker that guy is. But entrepreneurs, help me help me understand what the common thread is. If we're talking to, we're talking to Christian leaders, Christian men on this podcast. I mean, you're a believer. I mean, we all have, I hope, have these foundational principles we stand on. What is a common thread, would you say, with some of the more successful entrepreneurs that you know or that you've seen, and those intangibles, those X factors, those soft skills that you think are a common denominator?
It's a really good question, man. And so there's a couple of things in there, and I'm actually going to split what you just said. So there's the common denominators that, some of these common threads and these skills. So I think a little of both, because one of them I guess we could articulate that it's a skill, because the first thing that comes to my mind is that they won't be controlled by fear. And so then they go ahead and lean into speed. Like speed is the fact they don't overthink something, because they understand that overthinking usually really is just underacting.
That's your fire, aim, ready.
Fire, aim, ready.
That's
Make
right.
the decision quickly, right? Especially if it's not something that's life-changing. Now, if it's a life-changing decision, be a little more, who are you going to marry? Okay, well, that's a life-changing decision. Make that a little more slowly. But if it's not something that's life-changing, if it's something that can be reversible, make it quick. And then get your feedback, and then decide if you got to pivot or if you just It's make a habit of that speed. But before that even comes, you've got to be willing to trust yourself enough to not act in fear. And what's interesting is you talk about people of faith, and though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, unless it's the government. Well, unless it's how does my kid go to college? Well, unless it's this 9-to-5 job and the paycheck. Well, unless it's we like to talk a big game.
That's right.
But our life represents a very fear-based mentality. So the best entrepreneurs I know have figured out a way to get outside of that and make good decisions and surround themselves with people who will help them make those good decisions. And then they understand that speed is a factor in all of this, right? And then you start talking about those skills. The beautiful thing when we're building out our campuses, we take a look at what we call the meta skills. And I always ask families, what are the meta skills? And what I mean by that is, what are the things that matter to all humans all time? I believe physical health is a meta skill.
Yep.
Why? Because everybody's going to live in their body until they die. And so why would we not try to optimize at least being as healthy as possible? And I'm not talking it's got to be bros. We all got to have your six-pack. If you're a six-pack, you're a great entrepreneur. Yep. No, it's not that. Are you physically healthy? The fact that I don't get sick really ever. I haven't really had so much as even more than a little cold in a good decade or so. That matters.
Yep.
Because I can show up every day and I feel good and I can pour my energy into what I'm doing. More importantly, when I feel good like that, my cognitive ability is as good as it can. I'm not the smartest man in the world, but it's okay because I feel okay. So that's a meta skill. Work on that on campus. The best entrepreneurs I know take care of themselves physically. They take care of themselves relationally. Relationships are always going to matter. It's a meta skill. How do I relate to the world around me? The people that matter most, the people that I interact with the most. How do I build the relationships that I want to interact with the most? Those things matter. And then when you have those relationships, the communication piece, verbally, written, those are the skills, right, that matter to all people for all time. And so I think the best entrepreneurs lean into those there. And of course, the self-awareness comes out of that too. So
yeah. And a lot of those are interlinked, intertwined.
Yes, sir.
One begets the other.
Yes, sir.
The fact that you're physically fit and cognitively aware 99% of the time is indicative of disciplines that you've been consistent with. And so guess what? Those disciplines translate. They translate into business relationships. They translate into a lot of other areas, parenting. So, I mean, yeah, dude, there are staples. There are bedrock skills that translate in any area with anybody again. But if we talk about, and I'm a big believer, and I'm sure you are, but I'm not going to speak for you, but body, soul, and spirit, we are 3-part beings. I believe body, soul, and spirit, soul, mind, will, and emotions, those things, your mind, right? The cognitive, but spiritually, it's possible that everybody's got those other two dialed in perfectly. But if you're out of whack spiritually, if you're a train wreck in your heart of hearts spiritually, maybe talk about how if you've evolved there, if you've
Man,
seen people transformed there, and where that bleeds into.
I love this question, man. And I don't know how much you and I have even ever gotten to rap on stuff like this, right? So,
Right.
a big part. So, I'm going to frame this in a little bit of what we do within Apogee.
Cool.
So, the spiritual component is so dang important. So, for the men and the women in particular, and again, sometimes these are just the moms and the dads on the campus, or
Mhm.
they're men and women that are coming in detached from a campus, but they want to grow.
Mhm.
Month 4 in particular is our spiritual focus month, although it can come up, anytime, all the time. And we pair it with some communication exercises, some logical fallacy exercises, and we pair it with an exercise called steel manning. The whole goal of steel manning is to take a firm stance on what it is you believe and why you believe it, and then you go try to prove the opposite correct. That's the whole point of steel manning. Now, what that does is it gets everybody out of the, well, I have all the answers and I'm
Yep.
going to debate you. And or we
It's
can even
good.
say believer and just go, I'm a believer. Are you a believer? Yeah, I'm a believer. Okay, cool. We're on the same page. Well, I'll tell you what, if you take a Protestant, you take a Catholic,
Mhm.
you take a Mormon, you take a Jehovah's Witness, and are you guys believers? Yep, we're all believers. You take, somebody that's coming from Islam. You guys all believers? Yep, you bet. Oh, cool. I guess we all believe the same thing.
Mm.
Heck, do not. And that's okay. So let's stop with the generic labels and let's dive in to get definition of terms. What is it I believe and why do I believe it? Hey, what is it that you believe and why do you believe it? I'm going to try to prove you right. You try to prove me right. So instead of a debate, we actually get to this thing where you have to question yourself. You have to question where your beliefs come from. You
Mhm.
actually get to make a choice because now you're trying to prove everything else correct. And here's where it gets you. You either get to the point where you do your best to prove something else correct, but man, that evidence just doesn't hold up to the evidence that you've got. Great.
Mhm.
Or you got to be brave enough to go, I just tried to prove that correct. And I actually found more evidence to believe that than this particular part of the current faith that I am in. And
Mhm.
now I got to wrestle with it. Now I got to
Yeah.
be brave. So that's how we do it. So I'm continuously doing that exact same thing. I'm continuously going refine. It's a continuous refinement because the audacity I would have to have, the arrogance I would have to assume that in my 45 years of life, that God willing, I get 120 years of life, I'm going to have everything I need to know figured out around who he is and what this. Come on, give me a freaking break. But I need to try. I need to get as close as I can. I need to figure out more and more. Right. So that's how I do it. So my own journey, yeah, man, has been continuously evolving because I'm continuously looking back, most recently in these past handful of years, it's trying to the best of my ability, take the original Hebrew texts and go from the Hebrew and go, what does this say?
Mhm.
Is it different than our modern translations? Spoiler alert, a lot of times it is. And go, okay, well, what does this do then? What does this mean? How do I view this? Let's somebody kick this around with me and beat this up with me. So
Mhm.
yeah, this is some of my favorite. Outside of education, your education, physical health, and what we're talking about right here. These are the things I'll
That's
nerd
good.
out about all day long,
It's
brother.
big. It's
Yeah.
big. I'm with you, and thank God that He chose to make it simple. Because if it was dependent on me analyzing archaic, scriptures and documents and digging into archaeological proof, like I would be in trouble. Thank God I can, I stand on the person of Jesus Christ, and there's too much proof to, even if somebody were to try to steel man me on that, I can point them somewhere that's beyond me, that's like, dude, I'm sorry, I'm not budging off that. But I agree, you can't get in a room that's an echo chamber. It's counterproductive. It's debilitating to you mentally, spiritually, psychologically. You got to know what else is out there.
You got to have somebody. You got to be willing to do that. And I had somebody, one of our gentlemen recently, and he's like, all right, man. He's like, yeah, but you can't move me from. And nobody's trying to move anybody from anywhere.
No, yeah,
Everybody, like, there's
yeah,
there's
yeah.
none of that, right? So it is just how many things can we put in front They just allow you to wrestle with it. So even what you just said right there, here's a Googleable. So this is just for fun. Here's something that is easy to Google. Fact, the letter J didn't exist when that man walked the earth. So not a single person ever walked up to him and said, "Hey, Jesus, what's up?"
Called him wrong. Called him the wrong. We're calling him the wrong name. I get it.
So, right. And so
I understand.
that's a Google. And so again, that's just something for anybody
That's
can
right.
Google it. So then what do you do with that? Maybe it's nothing. Maybe it's something. I don't care.
Right.
But present that and go, cool. Now I've got to wrestle with it. Well, then where did that come from? What would he have been called? What would they have said? What would that, does that matter? Okay, that name would have been a Hebrew name. Does that Hebrew name mean
Yeshua. Yeah, yeah.
okay, well, right?
Google
So
the
it's
letter
like,
Y. Right, right,
well,
right.
then what? So you get to rest, and that to me is an amazing adventure.
Fascinating.
Right?
Yeah.
We go to church and we say, Lord, Lord, Lord. Cool. Guess what Lord is in Hebrew? Baal. Ba'Al.
Mm,
So if you look in other places in the Bible and it's talking about
ooh.
the son of Baal, it's never a
Right.
positive term.
Right, right, right,
That's
right.
the literal definition of
Careful. Yeah, right.
Lord. And we keep saying, Lord, Lord. What if Matthew 7, what if, I don't know, what if Matthew 7:21 isn't, the fact that people are saying, Lord, Lord, and he's like, I don't know you. What if partially he's saying that because he says, you wouldn't even call me Lord if you knew me because I don't use that term well.
Mm,
What if? Go wrestle with it.
mm.
I don't have the answer. You go wrestle with it.
That's awesome. That's
Right?
good.
It's
Good.
such good. And to me, that's an adventure, man. It's like, let me find out who this creator is to the
Yeah.
best of my ability.
Yeah.
And if John's got something else that I can chew on and go, shoot, I never thought about it that way.
Right.
Thank you. Not I'm
Yeah.
mad at you for
Yeah.
making me think. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because you're potentially making it something where I can maybe I'll completely come back and disagree with you. Maybe I'll find just a little nugget about who this creator is.
Yeah.
You just drew me closer to him. Like
Yeah.
there's
That's good.
no way to lose here.
It's good. I like it. And you know what? At the very least, that steel man exercise, if you're talking to your example, four different belief systems or religions, quote unquote, and everybody lands on honor, integrity, truth, like if everybody lands on some of these pretty important deals, like we can all agree on those. Like, I'm not going to do you dirty. Oh, well, I'm not going to do you dirty either because I believe in this. Oh, okay. Common ground. Hello. Let's start
That's it,
there.
man.
Yeah.
That's it, brother. And that's what we fail, in society. We can blame culture, we can blame media, we can blame school, we can blame parents, we can blame, and look, the onus probably falls on all of these to some degree.
Yeah.
The common narrative, we definitely blame politics. I mean, the common narrative is where are you divided? Find your tribe, and everybody else is Bloods versus Crips, man. Who are you?
That's
Where,
it.
right? And then the reality is, with most people, most of the time, of course, it's not a blanket statement, but with most people, most of the time, you can find a lot more common ground than places you're divided. So, what if we start there?
Yeah.
And then what
Yeah.
if we're okay with the fact that we're going to disagree on some things, and that's okay too? Let's just talk about it and have a
Yeah.
discussion.
You got to get at the table, though. You got to
That's
go
right.
get at the table. I agree with you. And it might be the first time in 5 years that anyone's ever referenced the Bloods and the Crips. So kudos to you.
And I'm all
I'm
about.
happy
I'll
to say
throw
I
some.
was here. I was happy to be a part of
Hey, I
that.
could bring some of the signs if you want. Like this is where I grew up.
Oh yeah, that's a whole
Yeah.
other car. Well,
Yes.
so dude, you were a part of this men's forge conference with Ryan Mickler and Larry Hagner and Connor Beaton and Matt Vincent, and I hope I named everybody. You were a part of this, correct? And tell me about it, man. Tell me what you brought away. Tell me what surprised you, what shocked you, all the good, all the bad, man.
Yeah, I appreciate that, man. So we started down this path of just, we all have our different um, lanes, so to
Yeah.
speak. Our different groups, we have different people that we serve, and all because we resonate with different people. Our missions are slightly different, our vibes
Mhm.
are slightly different, but
Mhm.
we're all friends. We all get together and
Yeah.
have conversations quite a bit. And so this was, hey, let's come together and put something together for everybody. What ended up happening within that is we realized we all had such different missions that we actually just had Ryan and Larry go forward with it. And not
Mm.
not in a like, oh, now we're all mad at each other. Not at all. It was just like, for the type of event that is coming out of this powwow,
Okay.
This is where it makes sense. So they ran the event together. We stepped out.
Oh,
I
wow.
actually ended up doing an event the same weekend that was Tim and I and some of our Apogee coaches. We did a men's event that was more our style. We've done 3 men's events now and a women's event, and we've got the next one's planned on the Apogee side, and it's a different style than that event. Now, I will say, I checked in with Larry, checked in with Ryan afterwards. The takeaways, I mean, they said it was an amazing time. They said the guys
Cool.
had a great time. The speakers rocked it. It sounds like it went extraordinarily well. And that's an example of kind of what we were talking about right here. Like,
Yeah.
support each other so much, and we had enough respect that we had conversations where we're like, as we're planning this out, I don't think we're aligned on how we want to do this. That's okay. I'm gonna
Wow.
support you. I saw an Apogee guy that went out and spoke at that event because his platform, it made sense over there, right? So this is not about a, well, this is a me, and a me. This is a no, man. There's a mission. Just this part of the mission. This part wasn't from. So we split on that, but sounds like
Okay. I didn't know that. And
yeah.
I'm glad you said that because, and I guess I'm glad I asked the question, even though it reveals my ignorance. I would say at the end of the day, though, if it's landing with dudes and it's meeting guys in the right place where they
Yeah.
are and it's
Yep.
moving the needle with them as men in their homes and their communities and their business, hey, amen. I mean,
That's
right
it.
there, that's it.
That's it, right? So like even with what we do on the mentor side and bringing people in, right? And you've been
Mhm.
gracious to come in and chat and come on
Sure.
the show and chat with our men and our young men. And who do we have earlier this week for the men? We had Dr. Andrew Kaufman, who was he stood up during COVID and was very outspoken
Mm,
and lost his medical license from
wow.
speaking up the way he was, right? So he came in. The week before, we had one of my favorite bands. It was a band member from Anne Berlin and Acceptance Band, Christian McElhaney, came in, and so like all these guys from such different backgrounds, right? Sometimes we'll have 30, 40 guys live with us, or some of our men and our young men. Sometimes it'll be, let's see, who do we have? Tim Ballard, right? When Sound
Yeah.
of Freedom
Yeah.
was in, so Tim came and joined us, and there was 200, that got there
Wow.
live that day, right? And so like so many different backgrounds. What I have learned is you never know who is going to resonate with who and how impactful. You might think so because this person's wildly famous or this person's wildly popular right now, and people can go, yeah, that was great, and here's what I learned. Sometimes you have somebody on nobody's ever heard of, but we know that we share those values,
Mm.
and then people walk away and go, well, that call just changed my life.
And
I'm like,
never saw it coming. Never saw it.
never saw
And
it coming.
had you boxed in your whole philosophy and what you believe, and if you'd have boxed that in,
Right.
then that would have never been available.
It's never available. That's it, right? So what do we look for? We look for good men who we see alignment in the values
Yeah,
and in some way, like we know that there's a values alignment there. It's going to manifest in all kinds of different stories, all kinds of different things. And there may be some things we got guys on where it's like, okay, there's definitely some things we don't agree with right there or don't agree upon. And that's
for
okay
sure.
because there's this, and this is what we'll take away and go apply,
Yeah. I mean, hey, if we go back to the Great Commission, it didn't say go into the rooms where you're accepted and where you're agreed with and where
Yeah.
everybody is perfectly aligned. It says go into all the world. I don't read it any other way unless someone's Bible says something else. It says go into all the world and make disciples. So
Every
share what you have, let it bounce around, and then if they want to not receive it, perfect.
That's on them,
Great. Let's
man.
move
And
on.
brother, I gotta tell you, I'm gonna tell you on that because and I don't believe in coincidences, but it's on the heels too of a conversation we had this week with another church. And again, when I say another church, I am talking about there is the church, right? And you got
For sure.
everybody,
Big C, yep.
got these individual businesses, and I get it, but it goes back to this fear conversation we had earlier.
Yep.
Conversation with a church that was going to have one of our campuses launching there, and they just went, yeah, man, we can't, you guys take a really hard stance on some things, and it's not that we disagree, but man, if we take that hard stance, our community is going to be so up in arms, and our congregation, and that cool, it was a business decision, it wasn't a right thing, wrong thing
There we
decision.
go.
Man, I just don't roll that way. Go get it. I'm not going to judge you for I don't, you do your thing.
Yep. Yep.
And that's just not the way I roll.
I'm telling you, I have been coming down on the American church for a while now because of that right there. And the business side of things. And I get it, man. To keep the lights on, to keep the word coming out, to reaching people, you got to pay a bill or two. I get it. But when that becomes your hinge point of making decisions on what resonates and stands and lasts the test of time, like, no, I gotta draw the line somewhere in the sand. So I'm with you, man. I agree with you that the quote unquote big C church is being misrepresented by some of the little c businesses that say they're a church because they want the exemption. So anyway, don't make me get off on that one. Thank you for bringing that up, though. And I don't believe in coincidences either. How are you? I'm going to shift complete gears on this deal, and then we're going to go into some of the what I call boys to men. How you're shaping these young men and women, these young learners and difference makers. But before I do, man, something I've always noticed about you, aside from just the great human being that you are, and how your heart is a servant's heart through and through. How do you, being all things to all people, that it seems like you're trying to do, like you're trying to be this all things to all people and in a great direction, how do you keep your marriage fresh? Like, how do you carve out margin for you and your wife? And I know you're both aligned. I know you both have the same vision. I know you guys agree on everything all the time. I'm kidding.
Yeah, right.
But I do know that she's a big part of what you do, of course. How do you carve out margin for you and Mrs. Beaudreau to stay fresh and stay in awe of each other?
That's awesome, man. I appreciate that so much. And she is, it's we're very much a kind of the opposites attract sort of thing. While we agree on, we have the values obviously aligned, and she is
Yeah.
my, in many ways my best friend on the planet, and has been for 20 years at this point.
Mm.
That we've been together. We're very opposite in terms of she's very quiet, she's very behind the scenes, she loves to be around people too, but it drains her more than it does me, right? She's the natural, so there's the opposites, in that whole thing. So yes, vision has always had to be, aligned, because there were times where I was on 200 plus flights a year,
Yeah.
building out our first campuses and all of that,
Mhm.
all of those things. So we had to know what the long tail version of this relationship was. I don't want to wrap here because there's something more intentional that I want to say. But that long tail version matters. And we aligned on looking at things from a long tail game. That was one of the biggest things for us up front, is that we aligned on looking at things from a perspective of, we both see the world where things will work out well if we have a long-term vision. We're patient for that. We remain consistent in order to get there, right? So I've got some journals that are over here. I can see them from my office here, and they were she and I writing back and forth when we were still dating 20 years ago, right? Like,
Wow.
I'd visit her, go over her house, right?
Yeah.
And I'd leave the journal that had answers to the questions she asked me last time, and then I had some questions, and leave
That's
it, right? And then
cool.
the next time she came over, right? So we have this. So
Nice.
now the house that we have right now, this is house number 9 for us. Right,
Mm.
we moved a bunch of different times because partly was pursuing the vision that we have. And what's cool is house number 9 is the vision of what would a home, what does a forever home look like, that we started writing to each other 20 years ago. We're in it now, right? It's the 9th one. Like, that long-term commitment mattered so much up front, right? So, but in the short term,
Wow.
it's this continuous revision of, who do we need to be right now for each other? Who is the ideal version right now for each other? So, of course, we can talk about the weekly date nights. Of course, we can talk about, the family meetings. Of course, we can talk about the tactical things like that. I think a lot of guys will implement that, and that's a good thing. But during those quiet times where we've got a consistent at least an hour a day that's together, at least, my day is wildly scheduled, but every day has at least an hour where she and I can just sit down and connect and go, hey man, how are we doing? Right? Hopefully there's more, but every day's got at least that hour built in. But the big question is, how am I doing showing up as the person I need to show up as for you? That's the
Mhm.
question. What is the ideal? Like, and Plato, dove into this years ago with his concept of the forms. We dive into it with our men and women using Todd Herman's work with the alter ego effect, right? And he helped Kobe Bryant with the whole Mamba mentality sort of thing.
Yeah.
Right? But the whole concept is, in every walk of life, what is the ideal version of that person that's you? It's not fake it till you make it. It is the best version of me as a husband, the best version of me as a father, the best version of me as an entrepreneur, the best version. Like, I've got all these fields of play. They're all me, but my relationship with my friend John will never look exactly the same as it does with my wife Heather, obviously. Right? There's both me, but you and I are not going to have that same romantic relationship.
Sure.
Right. So I got to define what that is. So that's what we continuously come back to on a weekly basis is, how am I showing up right now? Is there something else you need from me? When both of us show up that way and go, do I need to change myself a little? Like, how do I need to show up a little better for us? As long as we're on the same page there, it's easy. And we're consistent with that. So it makes it really, really simple. There's never any massive changes that need to take place. It's just like, it's little tweaks here and there. But
no, it's good. And I know the word intentional gets used a lot, and it should in that regard. But I think the key to that, and what I'm going to take away, is that this thing is a fluid document. And if you don't check in periodically, we don't know how I've changed or how she's changed. Like, you could have left it at, man, we had a long-term vision, we were dating, and we just assumed that stayed the same, and we never change as people, and we just leave it alone. Well, I got news for you. There's a lot of guys that probably ask that right question early in their marriage and then don't ever ask another question on how can I show up for you? And
how
they're
can I
missing
show
that.
up? And the beauty is, man, when I hear from her how I can show up a little different or better for her, what I've been doing right, what she could use some help on, I also get insight to who she wants to now be for herself too, right? Like, what is the next she just turned she'll turn 41 here in July. So I get what's Heather version 41 look like, right? So I get that insight there. So not only do I show up how I need to for her, I go, oh, okay, here's what she wants. How can I support her in showing up like that for herself too, right? And we both get to take that perspective. It's just those little things, consistent check-in. It doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah. And you have younger kids. I know you mentioned you have a 14-year-old. Is she your oldest?
Yes, sir. 14,
Okay.
12, and 9.
Okay. So they're right in that, oh man, what a formidable, what am I trying to say? Impressionable age and stage right there, man. And so how important is it? And I know the answer to this, and so it's kind of rhetorical, but not just how important is it that they see the way y'all love each other, you and your wife, but how important and what are you doing to show them this is how you show up as a spouse? This is what we focus on, stand on. This is what's non-negotiable. Like, are they too young for that? I would say no, but how are you doing that with that age group?
No, they're not too young at all, but it is literally the day in and day out. So the best education, I always tell parents this, the best education for your young people, forget what school do I go to, forget what programs do I connect with, what curriculum do I use, the best education you are ever going to get for your kids is you continuously growing to the best version of yourself and taking them along with you, right? You mentioned Sean Briscoe earlier. You mentioned the financial systems that we've got set up. You mentioned all of that. Cool. Guess what? That's normal now for our house. So my kids, do they have to understand all that? No. Guess what? Here's a secret. I don't fully freaking understand it all the time. That's why I meet with him.
That's right.
I meet with my finance team for 30 minutes a day, for 30 minutes once a week. Every Wednesday morning, 9:30 a.m. We got it on the calendar. I'm meeting.
Explain it to me like I'm 5. Yes.
Explain it to me like I'm 5, because I think that's where my cognitive ability is when it comes to that.
Me too.
Right? So, but because that is now normal in our house, all we got to do is take our kids along with that. They don't need to understand all of it yet. They just need to get exposed to it, and that becomes normal, because then the conversations start to be around that same vein, right? So when it comes to the relationship side, it's the same thing. First and foremost, they're seeing how we show up. How do we talk to each other? How do I open the door for mom? How do I speak to her in public and in private? And man, that's the same, right? They see that. They understand that. They understand that when we start to disagree, They can see that we'll disagree, but they see that we do so respectfully. We don't sit there and scream and yell, and that's it. That's not it. We're not going behind closed doors and doing that. We can figure out how to work things out in a framework. It's the same framework we're asking them to work things out between each other, right? It literally is just how you live your life day in and day out. And you can't fake that for very long, too. One of my favorite things, we had a live workshop this last weekend, and I got to meet somebody in person, a couple that I've known the lady for years, because she's been a part of some of our programs, but it's the first time I got to meet her in person. And so she and her husband were here. And so we had dinner with my wife, and my kids were there too. And so she got to be around them, and she's like, yep, you can't, everything I thought, that everything you show on, any of our programs, or you show on social media, or you show it's it. Like, there's nothing different. And you can feel the joy come off your kids, and they're so happy to be around you guys and us. And it's so easy. She's like, it just solidifies everything. We're doing that for them and with them. It's really not complicated.
Yeah. Fake always floats, doesn't it?
Always.
Fake always floats to the top.
Always. That's why I love getting together with people.
Well, I'm gonna have to write that down. That was pretty good.
That was good. That was good. But that's why I love getting together with people and their kids and the family, like getting the families together, like that. Man, that matters, because you can see, and getting together for a good amount of time, because you can watch and you see how everybody interacts with each other. And you see if this is like, we're putting on a show right now, and like, we know how to act because we're here.
Yeah.
This is just the way we roll. You can tell.
Yeah. 5 hours hits different than 5 minutes.
100% it does.
Definitely does. And you have one or two sons?
I have one boy. So yeah,
one boy.
My 14 and 12 are my young ladies, and then my young man. Yes, sir.
Okay. And then, but you're around, so it probably feels like being around a lot of the young heroes who are boys and young men now, like in the programs. I mean, kind of feels like you're a pseudo extension of parent for them. And how has teaching, educating, training, strengthening these young men in your programs, how has that shaped you, maybe as a father, as a parent? How has that shaped you? Yeah.
It's a really good question. For me, it has been more about learning, and this is again over 2 decades at this point of getting to work with students, and obviously the last handful of years really honing in on the young men. Although we've got our young women's program now, I don't run that. I've got ladies that are running. For me, I think the biggest advantage that I'm really, really grateful for is, as I've developed relationships with these young men, I see the things that have become their distractions, the things that have become their kryptonite, the things that they are struggling with. And I start to see a pattern of like, shoot, they're struggling with all of these things that never needed to be there in the first place. So I think where that's really helped me as a dad is keeping things simple over here. I think from a parenting perspective, I see a lot of people now, there's so many resources for anything and everything at this point. And everybody's like, okay, well, I got to find the perfect this, I got to find the perfect this, and the perfect this, and the perfect this. And we load all these things on top of our young people. And I think sometimes, and then we try to mitigate by throwing a distraction here and there. And I think sometimes it's really stripping things away. And that's really been the most beneficial. So my young man, there are a lot of things that we've stripped away, more old school, like you and I grew up. We don't, we're not doing video games. They're not, none of my kids have, any sort of smartphone, social media kind of stuff at all. They don't get to just jump on and watch TV all day and jump on screens all day. Like, we've stripped away so much that has allowed them to figure out what they want to do, who they want to be. They know themselves better than most other 14, 12, and 9-year-olds, and so my 9-year-old just has like a peace about him, a joy about him, right? He's very much a boy. I mean, he's kickboxing, he's wrestling, he's out doing Ninja Warrior, he's out with his knives, and he's out with his guns, but then he's also will go sit down and read a good book, and he'll read 100 books this year, and he'll do, so he's the little warrior and the little poet, right? He's got both of those because he's not distracted by other things.
That's so good. Yeah. I mean, I would have done so much different, 20 years ago. And so I've been a parent for almost 27 years.
Which is
And I have
bananas to
four.
me. Which is bananas to me every time we talk about that, because I feel like every time we talk, I'm like, oh yeah, clearly I'm so much older than him because I look so much older. You know,
Brother, my hair would be if I let it grow the same. And I'll be 53 in a couple
yeah,
months
that's
and
crazy to me.
four kids. So
Yeah,
I try to throw and pull and push a bunch of heavy stuff a lot. And so that's about all I can attribute it to
great
because I
man.
don't eat great. And I don't run long distances, but I'm hopefully I'm going to be around a little bit and be able to lift some things for my kids if I need to. Along that line too, like what so I'm going to try to make this a two-part question, and I'm going to try to mesh some sectors here a little bit, and then I'm going to probably butcher it, but you can track it. You're a smart guy. So in the season of graduation, right? We've got high school seniors, people graduating, transitioning into another phase of life. What would you say to a group of these young young men? You're in a gymnasium, you're
Yep.
given a speech.
Yeah.
Give me some high points as to what real manhood looks like, because I'm going to speak for all 18-year-old boys, right? They've been told, a lot of them have been told that it's sports,
Yeah.
chicks,
Yep.
and maybe shooting bad guys is what I want to do down the road. Nothing wrong with that for sure. But killing animals, this is what manhood is.
Yep.
What do you say that might confirm or dismiss some of those caricatures they've been
That's
sold
really
for years?
Oh, it's really good, man. So, I've had some similar conversations. It's funny you say that too, because we talk graduation stuff all the time with
Mm-hmm.
teachers and families that'll reach out around this time, and from whatever angle that they're taking this. And then a picture popped up the other day. The first time I ever gave a commencement address at a university, which was a good 9, 10 years ago.
Wow.
I got to address this university and as a bigger university in California, and it was a great time for me, and it was very divided on how the message was taken, and the message is really not that dissimilar from what I'd say now. The biggest thing is those preconceived look. This is what it looks like to be a man, and this is what that's always something that continues to get recycled and somewhat redefined based on culture, based on what's popular, based on all these trends. But I like to go back to kind of the classic earliest examples of what it meant to be a man. I like to start pointing people back at graduations and
Mhm.
during this time to 18-year-olds, 100 years ago. I like to take a look because look, your DNA hasn't changed since then.
That's right.
But I like to let them know that the word teenager wasn't even around until 1944. And
Hmm.
what came along with that was a delayed expectation of what you were capable of. It was an expectation. So when we're talking about chicks and guns and whatever, cool. I graduated at 18, or I graduated at 17, started college at 18. It was the same thing. That was my expectation because that's
Yep.
what was it. Expectations are what has changed. Your DNA has not. And this is the
Mm.
plight of the young man now, is to tap into deciding to have different expectations. What are the expectations that we want to have for our men? Well, we want our men to be responsible, and that means responsible for themselves and the decisions they make. We want them to be responsible for taking care of others and serving others and leading others. We want them to be able to do the things they say they're going to do, not because they're just capable, but because that's the kind of guy they are too. If they say it, they mean it. Their yes means yes, their no means no, right? And they're pursuing the best version of themselves. They're committed to doing that day in, day out. Like that's it. It's just that consistency. It's maturity happens when you choose it. Like maturity doesn't happen because you hit a certain age.
Yep.
Maturity happens because you choose it. Because you choose to be responsible for anything and everything in your life. And so for these young men, it's pointing back to, hey, before 1944, you had young men that were out, at 18, and they were taking care of their family. They were married and they had kids. You had young men at 15 who were out being surveyors, living on the land for,
Hmm.
for a week at a time. You had documented 12 and 13-year-olds going into war. And I'm not saying that's what you want. What I'm saying is They believed in themselves and had high expectations. So what it looks like now is figuring out what is the highest possible expectation you can hold for yourself and continuing to pursue that. It's shifting expectations always.
Wow. And I love that you said the DNA hasn't changed.
That hasn't changed.
And
Expectations are the only thing that's changed culturally.
that's really good. And Ryan, our buddy Ryan Mickler, says too that once you understand that your role is now to be more of a producer than a consumer,
Yeah.
is really, and that's an expectation. Like you need to have that expectation. And we got a lot of 40-year-old children, males, living in the basement collecting an unemployment check or whatever, if that. And so the expectation is someone's going to do it for me in that situation, an entitlement, right? And so what programs, if they're even formalized within Apogee, which I'm assuming they are because you're a very structured, systematic person, what programs reinforce maybe that message and set a standard for the right expectations?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we build, everything we have is, we call it a roadmap. So our young men's program, our young women's program, men's, women's, whatever, it is a roadmap. And it's not because we think this is the ideal roadmap that knocks it out of the park for every single human being, but it's a roadmap that covers all these meta skills and gives you opportunities and challenges to figure out where it is you need to grow and where you're rocking right now. Right? That's the whole thing. So we want to expose you. We talk about apogee, like you're climbing a mountain, right? And you're getting to the apogee of the mountain. And the way we frame it for them is a good man, as he's climbing the mountain, he is going to take a look at the footsteps of those that have come before him, because that's laying out a path. And so he's like, okay, I'm gonna try to follow this path here. I'm also gonna make sure I'm reaching back, because I'm going to make sure that whoever's coming up next, I'm going to keep helping them up. So I got one hand up here, I got one hand down here, right? And so I'm going up and I'm bringing somebody else along. And then what's going to happen is I'm going to get to the top of that mountain and I'm going to realize, cool, I climbed the top of that mountain and I'm going to look over and I'm going to go, man, that mountain's bigger though. And so now I got to go climb back down this one and go climb that one. And I'm going to do the same thing, right? And every once in a while, you're going to get to a place where you're like, shoot, I lost the footsteps of the person in front of me, and I'm just going to have to hack away and do my own path. So everything is built around that idea. So you're connecting with these mentors on a weekly basis for sure, but really on a daily basis, because you're connecting inside our platform with other Apogee men too. So you're connecting with those that have come before you, who are pouring in and saying, look, this is how I did it. This is how I would have done it. You're figuring out, okay, what do I need to apply to myself so I don't make some of the same mistakes? You're tackling all of these challenges to find out, here's where I'm really, really good. Here's where I'm really, really bad. Here's where I want to get better. Here's where I don't actually necessarily care if I ever get better, and I don't necessarily need to. So here's where I would partner with somebody. And then here's who I can bring along on this journey too and pour back in. So all the challenges have some of that in mind. You're either connecting with somebody who's done it, or you're out trying something that's going to increase one of those meta skills, or you're going out in a way that is serving somebody else and bringing them up to where you are currently. All the challenges.
Wow. That's so good, man. I mean, don't look now, but that's a 2,000-year-old discipleship model that you're doing. Wow.
Bingo. I mean, it's not, the model hasn't changed, right? The resources change, right? The opportunities change, the distractions change.
Yep.
The model doesn't change.
So what do you do in a situation, because these young heroes that are members of this program, maybe they're confused, to your point earlier of the Mamba and the alter ego, and what would the guy I want to be do here in this situation? Well, so these kids don't really know who that is. Like, how do you help them visualize the man that they're shooting to be?
They still put that board of directors together. So they still, what you just said right there is spot on, man. You got the, for a long time, people wore the WWJD bracelets, right?
Yep.
And how crazy would it be if we were like, you're wearing that bracelet because you think you're Jesus. No, you don't. Nobody did. Nobody wore that and said that. Nobody thought that of anybody else. The whole point was, it's a reminder. You look down and go, okay, if I am following this person, it's literally what would that person do? It's a reminder.
It's my standard that I'm shooting
Right.
for.
That's my standard. So what we have everybody do is define their standard,
Wow.
right? So definition of terms, define the standard. Who do you want to show up as? What are the attributes? What are the characteristics?
It's
What
great.
are the, like, let's define those things.
Wow.
And who are people that mimic those or exemplify those for you?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be Kobe Bryant. Maybe it is your baseball coach.
Yeah.
Maybe your coach. And by the way, maybe your coach isn't the perfect man, because guess what? That doesn't exist, right? So maybe your coach isn't but maybe he's the perfect example of humility. And you believe a good man should be humble. Okay, cool. So I'm gonna look to that coach for this part right there. And you believe that a good man should be consistent. Okay, well, I'll tell you what. My Uncle John, man, that guy is wildly consistent. So I'm going to put him here, right? So you've got this board of directors that you go to that each map to a component of something you want to be. Really, who do you want to be? And these are the guys that are the reminders. And that can continuously be shaped and evolved, but it's just those great reminders. I've got here in my office, I've got an entire board of directors framed that one of our men had created for me, which was an amazing gift. And I've got all of them right there. And so I walk into my office and the first thing I see is boom. And I've got that board of directors and I can figure out, okay, what's my role right now? Who are the guys that remind me of the character traits I need to make sure I bring to the table right now? These guys are the reminders.
Yeah.
Right. So I've got that on the wall. We do the same thing for everybody.
That's beautiful. I mean, the board of directors, wow, that's a game changer. And they get to, because they have skin in the game, because they've identified and they've bought in because they've created it. So look, you chose this, so now you're bought in.
That's right. You chose it. You created your board of directors. And we'll walk them through these exercises. Where it's like, look, maybe it's a guy you know. Maybe it's somebody you don't know. Maybe it's somebody. I mean, Teddy Roosevelt. I don't know Teddy Roosevelt. All right, I never met him. He's on my board of directors for a very specific part of me, right? So Teddy, maybe it's a fictional character that exemplified something for you. I have a couple of fictional characters on my board of directors, right? Where it's like, okay, but there was something about them, whether it was from the book or from a movie, where it was like, okay, this is the way they showed up in this particular type deal. And that's a great reminder for me.
That's so good. That's so good. Well, man, I don't want to end abruptly, so I'm going to try to round this out and land this plane, because I don't want it to end, but I know we've got to do some things and you've got a meeting. So, all right. Apogee.
Yes, sir.
Vision when it started. Now.
Yeah.
Where is it going? Like, what? Okay, two-part. Sorry. Yeah. I'm full of two-part questions.
You're good, man.
When you look back on it, what do you think could have accelerated maybe a trajectory that you guys didn't think of? Maybe hindsight, one of those hindsight questions. And then where are we going? What's the vision? What's the big, hairy dream goal that you're chasing?
Yeah, I appreciate that. When we started, it really has been this organic thing, because it started with just, like, hey, let's pour into these young men. That's really what it started as. And it's just organically added more and more layers as we've gone on to see kind of let the vision sort of unfold in and of itself. So, I don't know that I would have changed anything on that, but what would have, hyper focused it is from a tactical sense, is obviously knowing we were going to go here overall, but then also being able to we've never put an ad out there. Like, we've never put a dime into marketing. We've never put none of that.
Oh, wow.
None of that. And so that, from a tactical standpoint, we're working with Alex and Layla Hormozy a little bit. And so we're starting to do that now. That could have been a hyperspeed thing, but so I got no complaints.
Cool.
And so where it's going now really is, we use all of these virtual things as far as bringing everybody together from around the world to create local. We want local hubs. Yes, we'll all connect globally.
Yeah.
But we want local, man. Local campus that is the education hub for the whole family. So yes, kids can go there during the day. The parents can be there on site and work with the kids. Hey, they can all work out together. Hey, there's also coaching right there for the men and the women. So mom and dad can get better. They can grow their business. They can get stronger in their marriage. Yes, the university component we have added. So yes, everybody can get their degree there too, or
Wow.
take college credits while they're there. Yeah, it is just this hub for people with these values to come together. We'll all connect with each other globally, but it's this hub of people you can do life with. It takes a village. I agree, but that's also been co-opted by the government saying we're your village. No, no, no. We're going to get back to our villages. It's that. We're trying to build those little villages.
That's really good. Yeah, I love it. And, I like that you said, because when you talk to people about scaling businesses or passions or ministries like this podcast, it's not a monetized entity, but it's trying to scale certain things. So when you're talking about, I like that you meant that you started out organic and you kind of added layers as you saw the need and you filled the gaps and you wouldn't change. I love that. So I guess my question is, have you narrowed down any cool, like foundational concept that helps with scaling in general terms? Like, have you figured out, oh, yeah, you know what it is? This is our framework, and then we know how to build a network around that actually expands the mission. Like, do you have is that clear?
Yeah.
Like, have you narrowed in on something that's a scaling nugget?
Yeah, I think from a scaling perspective, so it's very similar to what we said earlier on. It's funny how much business and family
Yeah.
align in so many ways, right? And one can really kind of inform the other.
Yeah.
Talking about young men, and I said, look, like one of the best ways that I've learned to grow my own young man is to strip away the things that would impede him from growing, right? The best way to let a flower grow in your garden is not just the addition of things,
Sure.
it's stripping away something that's going to kill it, right? And so, from a scaling perspective, from the business, that's another thing we have found is that stripping away is the big help. So we take a look at what are the biggest constraints one at a time. And
Hmm.
so is the constraint, one of the constraints that we saw for a little bit was me. What happened if I died? If I had died,
Hmm.
the whole thing could have died, right? At one point. Now,
Yep.
not at all. There's no key man risk, right? That's called a key man risk in a business. So in order to scale, you want to eliminate key man risk so the organization continue to grow. So us taking a look at what is our biggest constraint and removing the constraint has been one of the biggest game changers for us to allow us to grow. Getting me out of having to be the guy for everything is part of what made all of a sudden now we've got all of these campuses, we've got all these other coaches that are in there, and that's allowing us to scale exponentially. But it's not because we added coaches, it was because we went, okay, the constraint is me, get me out of the way,
Hmm.
right? So taking a look at it from not what can I add, but what can I take away?
Wow.
That perspective shift sometimes can make it a
Hey,
little bit.
that's big, because I think we get laser focused on what so much we need to add for growth.
Yeah, a lot
And
of
like
times
you
it's
said,
stripping.
some of it is just weed the garden.
A lot of times it's stripping. I go.
Love it.
Yeah, I the keynotes, obviously I have 1,000 or so keynotes, at this point. And so some of our guys internally were like, okay, I'm gonna deliver my first, big keynote, or I've got a TEDx coming up or whatever. Like, help me with this speech. I got a TEDx. I've got a 40-minute speech, man, but I need to chop it down to 18. I'm like, okay, well, cool. Here's what I've learned. If you've got a 40-minute speech, you have a 10-minute speech. If
That's
you're
right.
if you're early on in the game and you think you have a 40-minute speech, you don't. You got a bunch of extra fluff and a bunch of extra. So I can go in there and just right, and we can simplify.
Right.
Our writing, our communication needs to be the same. A lot of times our businesses need to be the same too.
Yeah.
Simplify to grow.
Perfect. Perfect. All right. Well, that's a good way to end right there. I think we just grew people's businesses without even realizing we were doing it. So good for you, man. It's been an honor to have you. It's always a privilege, man. It's always a good conversation. And I think, this one, I might, if I had to pick a favorite child of our episodes that you've been on, I would have to say this one might do it, because we covered a lot and it was really good. So thank you for doing this.
You're a huge part of why it's good, man, because you just do a great job. You're one of my favorites. It's always an honor to connect. You do a great job on this, and you're just a rad freaking human, man. So
wow, dude, appreciate it. I'm gonna take that one and marinate in that one a little bit. I appreciate it, because it means a lot coming from you. So, audience, he is the one and only Matt Beaudreau. We've been last in line. Be blessed.